Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Stanley. This is their part number CB199. This is a flagship hinge, a concealed bearing 199, 4.5 by 4, 32D or 630. This is a real serious hinge. Couple of reasons. Let's throw it out there. It's a CB hinge. It's a concealed bearing hinge. Probably about 20% more efficient than a standard BB version or a ball bearing version like a FB199 would be. Not only is it more efficient, but I would argue that it's more elegant because you don't see those bearing packets at all four intersections of these knuckles. Okay. So that's number one. Concealed bearing, more elegant, plus it's more efficient. And then, of course, it's a 199. That means it's a heavyweight hinge and that it is a non-ferrous base material. And in this case, it's stainless steel with a brushed finish. So a hinge like this should be 180 thousandths thick. And according to my caliper, I'm at about 174 thousandths on one leaf. Yeah, 174 on both leaves. Plus or minus 5 thousandths, I think, is going to be considered pretty typical for this. And then, of course, it's 32D. Okay, completely non-ferrous base material. Even though stainless steel does pick up small amount of magnetism when it's been worked or machined. It's going to be a stainless pin inside of there, but, stainless when it is machined or worked. And I think the term is passivated, a process that you will remove that residual magnetism. Not that it's done on hinges, but I've run into clients that were doing projects and they needed stainless hardware for a type of application, and it had to be passivated. So I happen to know that term. Has the CB199 stamp on the back, not that you can really see that. But what I like about the CB that's on the front with their logo is that the logo is relatively petite. I don't like excessive corporate advertising on my hardware, and Stanley does a really great job at not doing so. So, flagship hinge in the sense that it is heavyweight, concealed bearing. It's heavyweight, it's going to handle a heavier door. Concealed bearing, it'll handle a heavier door. It's stainless steel, exterior application, so it's got a lot going for it. The only thing that this doesn't have is maybe a 5-inch height, which tells me that the door may not be excessively wide. This door is probably 3 foot wide, maybe 160 pound or up range to maybe up to 220 pounds. This client did order 4 of them, so it's probably not 2 doors. It's probably 1 door that they're putting 4 hinges on. So it could be a little bit taller, obviously. Or maybe just a little bit heavier in that regard. Now, why would you want a 4.5 inch by 4? The height is the first dimension on hinges like this. It's 4.5 inch tall. The width is 4 inch. So you're going to certainly be accustomed to a 4.5 by 4.5 or a 4 by 4. But you start dealing with hinges that are no longer square. Now they're rectangular. Either height is longer than the width or the width is greater than the height. There's a reason for that. And actually, a 4.5 by 4 is very likely the best hinge to use for your application. 4.5 by 4.5 is used to excess in our industry when it's really not the best option or best hinge to use, because you don't need, there's no reason to have the additional 1/4 inch movement of the vertical axis of pivoting out further. When you have a condition, you've got, here's the wall, your frame's coming over it. Think of your favorite coffee shop when you go into the restroom. Partition walls, 3 5/8 metal studs, 5/8 rock on both sides, 4 7/8. You got a hollow metal frame knocked down usually, goes over the end of that wall. Well, that door can go to 90 degrees and it can probably swing well past 90. But there's no reason to scooch that vertical axis of pivoting out further with a 4.5 by 4.5. A 4.5 by 4 is a better option because there is no clearance that you need to contend with. You don't need to get that door out and then around a thick casing or a weird wall condition or a deep inset of the door into the frame. So when you're doing typical installations, think about the width of the hinge because it might be better served with a hinge that's not the same as the height. The opposite of that is when you need a wide throw hinge. When your wall condition, your inset or your clearance requires that you have a hinge wider than it is tall, and that's because you need to get out and then back around. You want to be able to get the door to 90, but you want it to go to 180 or some fraction greater than 90, and then you got to think about how much room is being consumed inside of that space and how much wider that may or may not be. So this isn't a talk on wide throw hinges, but if you want to talk about wide throw hinges, that'll be something I would be happy to participate in. Stainless steel, yeah, I'm thinking generally people will ask for stainless steel, I think, for 3 reasons. That's the words that they are saying, but not understanding that stainless steel to a hardware person means it's made of stainless steel, not what it looks like. It's silver colored. It's made of stainless. So people will say stainless. Wait a minute. You want stainless steel? Where's this hinge going? Oh, it's going. We're doing an office build out, and we've got 10 office doors, and we need stainless hinges. Why do you need stainless? You need it for the fact that it's a non-ferrous base material? They say, no, not at all. I just need it to be silver colored. Okay, so that's number one. You have to be cautious when someone says stainless. They might just be saying stainless steel, but don't need the inherent advantages of a non-ferrous base material. Number 2, they say it because that's the color that they want. You know, I need that color. And then you can say, well, let's talk about the color that you want. Do you want just a silver hinge? Then you go into the conversation, where is it being used? Interior or exterior? Someone will say, nope, coastal environment, southern Florida, I've got to have a stainless steel hinge. When I say stainless, I mean stainless, solid stainless. And then you can talk about, do you want it brushed or polished? And then lastly, someone says it and they know, I need stainless steel because it's that coastal environment. That's why someone will say stainless steel. It's a term that's thrown around a little loosely, but admittedly so by people who don't make a living in hardware and aren't really sure what they need, what their application actually calls for. This client ordered stainless steel, and he is a not from within the industry, but someone who I happen to know. This client has an exterior door in Maine in a coastal application, so certainly wants the stainless hinge for the virtues of its base material to avoid short-term corrosion is the bottom line. Screws are going to be included, and they are going to be non-ferrous as well. This will be machine screws and wood screws. By all means, specify specify the screw type that you want or that you expect to receive. Don't shy away from saying, hey, I want all wood screws and all machine screws, or saying, I want all machine screws. This is an aluminum door and frame. I don't need any wood screws. So clarify that so that we can transfer that information to the factory so they can make sure the stuff shows up. The point is it might be awfully difficult. If they were to send all machine screws and half wood screws, which would not be strange, I might say to myself, why would I ever send wood screws in a non-ferrous base material, in a stainless steel base material? If it was brass or bronze, I'm going to think all wood screws. So clarify that, because if you want stainless steel, why are we using this on a wood door, wood frame? It could be fiberglass, but it's likely going to be something non-ferrous or steel is what it'll be. So clarify that. The point is, on a Saturday morning when you're swapping out your hinges, it's hard to find 12 by 1.25 inch threaded to the head, solid stainless brushed finish Phillips drive screws. That's the point. So we've talked about where you would use it, why you might use it, the fact that it's a premium sort of hinge, real center line of the Stanley offering. And this hinge would last for decades with ease. Let's switch to the screen view where we can take a closer look at some of the supporting documentation. Here is the item that we are looking at. CB199, 4.5x4 32D. Concealed bearing stainless steel base, satin finish. For use on heavyweight doors or doors where high frequency is expected. Entrance doors to office buildings, stores, public buildings. Corridor entrance doors to offices. Residential applications where it's a bigger door, wider door, thicker door. Not thicker necessarily, but heavier. This is called a heavyweight because it's 0.180. A standard weight would be 0.134 in a 4.5 inch hinge. stainless steel base with a brushed finish. You could call this 630. That's the BHMA code for satin stainless steel base material with a brushed finish. Concealed lifespan bearing is maintenance-free, no oil, no grease. Reversible flush tips and pins. I don't see why you would need to turn the pin over. You would drive it out, but I don't see why you would ever need to flip it around. You would drive it out because that's how you're going to hang the door, by attaching each leaf accordingly to the frame and to the door. Yeah, and that's how that would end up going. Hole in bottom tip for easy removal. I have seen some hinges from Stanley, and this doesn't include it, but I have seen a small center punch that has been included in some hinges, allowing you to drive that or hit that pin out. But alas, I don't see that tool often with Stanley hinges. I do see it occasionally. So let's look at some supporting documentation. The template here is going to be the document that's most important for us initially, or starting off. So we're looking at a non-ferrous, so we're going to be down in this column, obviously, and we can see the CB199, 180 thousandths, and then some dimensional properties. You're going to have your E dimension and your F dimension. You can certainly see that as we go across here. 4.5 by 4. Okay. Down here, you're going to have your E dimension. Then you have your F dimension, which is everything over here. So, diameter of barrel, you might want to know that. You know, once a year someone asks me that question, and I had always initially thought, well, why is somebody asking that question? Well, they're either curious, or there's an actual reason that they sure do want to know what that is. And that reason is because of something like this application where a client is building a slat wall and they really want to know the diameter of the barrel so that they can get their wall built correctly. And that would be a reason why, most certainly, why someone would legitimately ask that. So just thought I would point that out. No question is generally without merit. And then, of course, the F dimension, the edge of the leaf to the swag line. Lots of people ask that because people, I think, ask that question because they're not really sure how wide of a hinge leaf that they need, and they're measuring their existing hinge and saying, well, I want another 1/2 inch or another whatever dimension. So when they know what that F dimension is, they can say, okay, well, here's the size I need. Turns out that there's a way to determine how wide of a hinge you need, which we'll go over briefly in a moment. So that's your template. This is a generic document, and it certainly is compatible with many different part numbers from the manufacturer. What's nice about this document is that we call it a template. Now, this hinge has the template screw hole location. Well, we're calling this a template, and it has the template location. Well, the term template has two meanings. It's this dimensional drawing we're looking at, and then number two, the actual locations of these holes. If a hinge manufacturer, if a door manufacturer, if a frame manufacturer has made it to the template, in air quotes, template location for that height of hinge, no matter whose door, frame, or hinge you use, it's going to line up and match. In the world of 4-inch hinges in residential applications, there's a couple of dozen patterns easily. If you look at old hinges from the 1950s, 1930s, 1900s, you're going to find a very different pattern of hole locations. So if you're not sure if this is going to match, check it out first. Check out these dimensions. But this template dimension, this template location has been the standard for several decades. I think I was told maybe since the late 1960s. I believe it was a standard before that as well, probably since the 1950s, if not earlier. So if you're dealing with anything remotely modern, it's probably going to be this, especially if it's a 4.5-inch hinge. Then we have the cut sheet for our hinge that's here. And that's interesting because it will be an overview as to the hinge itself. It has different variations. The CB168 is the same hinge dimensionally, except that it has a steel-based material versus a brass or bronze, or a stainless steel with a polished finish, or a stainless steel with a brushed finish. And then all of the things here is a duplicate of what we've already talked about. The lifespan is the concealed bearing sort of application. Just wanting to see if they have some sort of a definition of it that we can sink our teeth into. So, lifespan carries a limited lifetime warranty for the life of the building. Okay, I would say that if you have not damaged your hinge, vandalized, the hinge has not been vandalized. If you've installed the hinge in accordance with the manufacturer's guidelines for width, thickness, height, volume of use, there's going to be a lifetime warranty, a limited lifetime warranty, which is probably going to mean that if you order these hinges and then 10 years later you have a approved claim with the manufacturer, they're not just going to send you new hinges. They would credit you probably the original price, and then you'd pay the difference. I don't know that that's how that works, but that's generally how it works. Okay, so lifespan, that's really something you want to look into. Let's get back to our CB199 page. There we go. So this chart tells you the sizes that you can order these in. They don't list 4.5 by 4 here for some reason. That's just an omission. They certainly do make it. But that would be the smallest that they would do in a heavyweight. All the way out to 8 by 8. Not an unheard of hinge. You may have never seen such a hinge, but this hinge weighs about 1.33 pound, 1 1/3 pound. An 8 by 8 hinge is going to weigh about 4.95 pounds. It's one hell of a big hinge for one heck of a big door, no doubt. Now, it's handy to see this table that shows you the sizes, because it will tell you, hey, what's a good size for my application? If you've got an 1 3/4 door and it's 12 gauge hollow metal, it's 14 gauge hollow metal, and it's going to take some use, yeah, you're looking at a 6 by 4.5 possibly. Okay, 5 by 4.5 would be for like a 16 gauge hollow metal door, 3'6" wide. 4.5 by 4, again, heavier doors, that kind of thing. Now, what table are we talking about to determine what hinge we want to use? Well, thankfully Stanley provides that to us, and it's in the early part of their catalog. General hinge information. Weight down over on this side, then part numbers over here. So where you see a CB168, you can think of 199. It's just a ferrous-based material. And when it comes to stainless, brass is going to be a little bit different, but this is the guidelines of what they're going to be looking at in terms of how heavy of a door, what frequency of use. So you're using a 4.5 by 4, I'm thinking, 150 pounds, 180 pounds, 200 pounds. So let's say something in this area with medium frequency use. Yeah, indeed. They're talking about a CB168, or in this case, a CB199. 4.5 by 4, sure, that's a better hinge than a 4.5 by 4.5, tucking it closer to the center of the thickness of the door. You go into something that is heavier use, go to a 5-inch tall hinge. Okay, keep it as narrow as possible. You can do a 5 by 4 that can be made. I don't know if Stanley can make it, but a 5 by 4 can be done, I think. Yeah, I'm quite sure it can be. So question that second dimension every single time. But here's your chart for looking at that, giving you some guideline. And you can see they make hinges for really heavy doors as well. Okay. CB168 8 by 6. You got a 600-pound door. Stanley has the product for you. Now in this catalog, there are lots. In the initial stages of the catalog, there are. It's an irreplaceable resource, and from the perspective of it being a encyclopedic reference as it comes to hinges. Finish chart is here as well. Now, I just did scroll past the wide throw hinge section to determine how wide of a hinge you need. So let's do this. When you have an application like this, you got your hinge barrel here, and your door will go from here to here to here. Use the narrow, 0, 90, 180 degrees. Use the narrowest hinge possible because you don't have a clearance problem here. Okay? But when you get into a wall condition where you're not wrapping the wall but you're butting up the frame to the edge of the wall, now you need to think about that. What dimension do you need to allow for here? Okay? So that formula is dt minus hb times 2 plus I plus C. Door thickness minus hinge backset. Door thickness minus the amount of the door that is not going to be mortised for the hinge. On an 1 3/4 door, that's going to be 1/4 inch. So times 2 is 3 inch. 1 3/4 minus 1/4 times 2 is 3 inch. Plus your inset, the dimension from the face of the frame to the face of the door. That's usually very small, like 3/32, but it could be anything. It could be 5 inch. I've seen it. Plus clearance, and clearance is this dimension here. And you add all that together, and you're going to get the width of what you should be ordering. So in our coffee shop analogy where we're wrapping the wall, this is 0. This is 0. There's nothing there. Okay, so use the narrowest hinge possible. And when you come up with the width of the hinge, go to the next widest commercially available size. If you want to discuss this further, I'd be happy to go over that with you. Suffice it to say that catalog is super helpful. Now, speaking of super helpful, there is a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Stanley products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to several encyclopedic documents. The one that I'll refer to is the 2010 Architectural Hardware Catalog. That's an older version of their hinge catalog because Stanley is now a part of Best and Precision and Kaba and National and other companies. So the blending of company names and who does what is blurred for me. And just the good old-fashioned Stanley hinge catalog is all I like to look at, because really the details in here have not changed in decades, century plus, that kind of thing. Here's your hinge back set, by the way. So that's the really great document that's on this page. Okay, let's wrap up this video on camera. Now, in conclusion, nice quality hinge. I am an unapologetic fan of Stanley. Why? Well, I like the quality, fit, and finish of the hinge. It seems to work nice, look nice, seems to do the job. I've put my tape measure on these countless times, my caliper. I've looked down the edge of the leaf itself, and the leaves always seem pretty flat without any sort of milling run out or run out. Does seem to be a small amount of giddy up on that, a little bit that you can see there. Does appear to be slightly yeah, this is my aluminum architect scale. Yeah, you can see it at the ends. A little bit of light peeking through in the center. If I flip that over, this should rock slightly. And it does. It rocks ever so slightly. So that's unfortunate. Do I think anyone's going to notice that? No. Do I think it should be noted? I do, is the bottom line. I've reviewed a lot of hinges from a lot of manufacturers, and I've seen some excellent and I've seen some awful. The fact that this is 5/1000 light in the thickness, which is within range, I think that small amount of giddy up is going to prove not too much of a problem. But the hinge leaf should be flat naturally. Okay. But I am always happy about their finish. It's always a clean finish. And you notice that they finish the back side of that hinge as well, which not every manufacturer does. But it's brushed stainless, so I would think they'll finish it. If you have any questions on the Stanley CB199 4.5x4 hinge or any other Stanley product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.